The moment my daughter grabbed that microphone at graduation, I knew our lives would never be the same again. I'm sitting in the back row of Lincoln University's packed auditorium, my hands trembling as I clutch a small bouquet of grocery store daisies. The flowers cost me $12 money. I counted out twice at the checkout because every dollar matters when you're a single mom. My navy blue dress is the same one I wore to my job interview at the diner 5 years ago. And I can feel the loose thread on the left shoulder that I keep meaning to fix but never have time for. Around me, families are dressed like they stepped out of a magazine. Designer handbags, expensive suits, professional camera equipment to capture their perfect moments. I'm recording everything on my cracked phone screen, hoping the battery lasts long enough to see Emma walk across that stage. My name is Sarah Collins, and I'm 42 years old. 22 years ago, I became a mother to Emma when I was barely more than a kid myself. 2 years later, Tyler came along, and when he was just a toddler, their father decided that being a family man wasn't the life he wanted. He left us with a stack of unpaid bills and a broken promise that he'd send money for the kids. That was 14 years ago. I haven't heard from him since. Tyler is sitting next to me, tugging at his tie. At 16, he's already taller than me, with the same stubborn chin that Emma inherited. He saved up his lawn mowing money to buy that tie, insisting he wanted to look nice for his sister's big day. He's been Emma's biggest cheerleader through college, even when it meant eating ramen noodles for dinner more nights than I care to count. "Mom, you're doing that thing again," Tyler whispers, nodding toward my hands. I look down and realize I'm picking at my cuticles, a nervous habit I developed somewhere between my second and third job. I clasp my hands together and force a smile. "Just excited," I whisper back. But we both know it's more complicated than that. 3 rows ahead of us, I can see my cousin Marcus Thompson with his wife Rebecca. They're both 45, successful, and have never missed an opportunity to remind me of everything I'm not. Marcus runs his own accounting firm. Rebecca is a corporate lawyer, and their 2 kids attend private school. They flew in from Denver for Emma's graduation, staying at the luxury hotel downtown while Tyler and I are sharing a room at the Super 8 by the highway. Earlier today, at the pre-graduation lunch, Marcus made one of his subtle comments about how impressive it was that Emma made it through college despite her circumstances. He said it with a smile, the way people do when they want to sound supportive while actually being condescending. Rebecca nodded along, adding that not everyone gets the advantages of a stable home environment. I wanted to tell them about the nights I stayed up until 3 in the morning helping Emma with her statistics homework after working a double shift. At the diner, I wanted to explain how I taught both my kids to budget by letting them help me figure out which bills to pay first each month. I wanted to share how we turned our tiny apartment into a home filled with laughter and dreams, even when we had more dreams than money. But I didn't say any of that. I just smiled and nodded, because that's what I've learned to do when people make assumptions about my life. Now, as I watch Emma on the stage in her cap and gown, I feel that familiar mix of pride and insecurity. She's radiant up there, confident, in a way I never was at her age. She's the class treasurer, graduating summa cum laude with a degree in political science. She did that. My daughter, the one Marcus thinks comes from a broken home, accomplished something I never could. The ceremony is about to begin, and I can feel my heart racing. I've been dreaming of this moment for 4 years, ever since Emma got her acceptance letter and we both cried in our kitchen. But I never imagined I'd be sitting here feeling so out of place, so aware of everything I'm not. I take a deep breath and look at Tyler. He grins at me, that crooked smile that always makes everything better. "She's going to be amazing, Mom," he says softly. He's right. She is amazing. And in about an hour, she's going to prove it to everyone in this room. 22 years ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I was 20 years old in my sophomore year at community college, and completely head over heels in love with David Martinez. When I found out I was pregnant with Emma, I was terrified but also excited. David promised me we'd make it work. He said we'd be a family, that he'd support us both while I finished school and started my career in social work. Those promises lasted exactly until Emma turned 2 and I got pregnant with Tyler. "I can't do this, Sarah," David said on a Tuesday morning in March, standing in our tiny apartment kitchen with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. "I'm 22 years old. I'm not ready to be tied down with 2 kids and all these responsibilities." I was holding Emma on my hip while she ate Cheerios one by one, her tiny fingers sticky with milk. Tyler was growing inside me, and I was already showing. I remember thinking how quiet the apartment felt, like the whole world had stopped moving. "What about us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You'll figure it out," he said, not even looking at Emma. "You're stronger than me." Then he left. Just like that. No forwarding address, no promise to call, no discussion about child support. He walked out of our lives like we were a temporary inconvenience instead of his family. I dropped out of college that semester. I had to, between doctor appointments, working enough hours to keep our apartment, and taking care of Emma. There was no time for classes. My dreams of becoming a social worker, of helping families like my own, got packed away with Emma's baby clothes as she outgrew them. The next 18 years became a blur of survival. I worked at Miller's Diner from 11 at night until 7 in the morning, then came home to get the kids ready for school. During the day, I'd catch a few hours of sleep before doing homework with Emma and Tyler, making dinner and getting ready to do it all over again. On weekends, I cleaned houses for families who could afford cleaning services. Families who looked a lot like the ones sitting in this auditorium today. But we weren't just surviving. We were building something. Emma was 5 when she asked me why other kids had dads and she didn't. I knelt down to her level in our cramped living room, looking into those serious brown eyes that always seemed older than her years. "Some families have moms and dads," I told her. "Some have just moms, some have just dads, and some have grandparents or aunts and uncles. What matters isn't what your family looks like from the outside. What matters is how much love is on the inside." She thought about this for a long moment, then nodded solemnly. "We have lots of love on the inside," she said. "Yes, we do, baby girl." Tyler was different from Emma. Where she was serious and studious, he was the family comedian, even. As a toddler, he seemed to understand that making people laugh was his superpower. When I'd come home exhausted from work, he'd put on little shows for us, dancing around our tiny living room until Emma and I were giggling so hard we forgot about unpaid bills and broken appliances. The sacrifices were constant. I haven't bought myself new clothes in 3 years. I drive a 2010 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it because it's paid off and still runs. I've worked Christmas morning, missed school plays, eaten peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for dinner more times than I can count. So Emma and Tyler could have better meals, but I've also been there for every important moment. I never missed a parent-teacher conference, even when it meant losing a shift and the money that came with it. I helped Emma with her college applications, spending hours at the library researching scholarships and grants. I taught Tyler to drive in the parking lot behind the diner. And I was there when he got his first job at the grocery store. My mother, Dorothy, used to say I was throwing my life away. "You could have finished school," she'd remind me during our weekly phone calls. "You could have had a career, a nice house, a husband who supports you." What she never understood is that I did have a career. I was raising 2 incredible human beings. I was building a family that could weather any storm because we had each other. Now, sitting in this auditorium, I can see the result of those 22 years of choices. Emma is graduating summa cum laude from one of the best universities in the state. Tyler is an honor roll student who volunteers at the local animal shelter. They're kind, hardworking, and resilient. But I still feel like I don't belong here. Looking around at all these successful families, I wonder if Emma would have achieved even more if she'd had a father who stayed. I'd been able to finish my degree, if we'd had more money for tutoring and test prep and all the advantages that other kids take for granted. I wonder if I was enough. The pre-graduation lunch at Antonio's Italian restaurant should have been a celebration. Instead, it felt like a performance where I didn't know my lines. Marcus had insisted on making reservations at the nicest restaurant in town, the kind of place with cloth napkins and waiters who refill your water glass before you realize it's empty. "It's Emma's big day," he'd said over the phone. "We need to do this right." What he really meant was that he wanted to show off, to demonstrate the difference between his family and mine. Rebecca arrived wearing a cream-colored blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent. And their kids, Madison and Christopher, were dressed like they were attending a business meeting rather than a family lunch. My mother, Dorothy, had driven down from her retirement community an hour away. At 68, she's still sharp as a tack and twice as cutting when she wants to be. She's proud of Emma, but she's never quite forgiven me for the choices I made 22 years ago. "You look tired, sweetheart," she said as she hugged me, her voice carrying that particular tone that mothers use when they're about to tell you everything you're doing wrong. "I've been working extra shifts to help with Emma's expenses," I replied, trying to keep my voice light. "Well, maybe if you'd finished your degree like I told you to, you wouldn't have to work so hard now." Tyler squeezed my hand under the table. Even at 16, he's learned to recognize when I need support. Emma looked radiant in her new dress. It's a simple black number that she'd bought with money from her part-time job at the campus bookstore. She was glowing with excitement, talking about her plans for graduate school and her internship with the state legislature. "It's wonderful that Emma has such ambition," Rebecca said, cutting into her salmon. "Education is so important, especially for young women who need to be self-sufficient." Comment landed like a slap. Rebecca had never worked a day in her life after law school. Living comfortably on Marcus's income while I'd worked multiple jobs for 2 decades? Mom's always been my role model for self-sufficiency. Emma said quietly, her eyes flashing, "She's the strongest person I know." Marcus cleared his throat. Of course. We all admire Sarah's determination. It's just that some paths are easier than others, you know? Some people have advantages that make success more attainable. What kind of advantages? Tyler asked, his voice deceptively casual. "My son has inherited my stubborn streak, but he's also got a quick wit that sometimes gets him in trouble." "Well, 2-parent households, for instance," Marcus continued, oblivious to the tension building around the table. "Financial stability, the ability to focus on education rather than just survival." "Marcus," Dorothy warned, but he was on a roll now. "I'm not criticizing anyone," he said, holding up his hands. "I'm just saying that Emma's success is even more impressive considering the circumstances. Not everyone can overcome the disadvantages of growing up in a broken home." The restaurant noise seemed to fade away. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Emma's face had gone pale, and Tyler's jaw was clenched tight. "Our home wasn't broken," Emma said, her voice steady but cold. "It was different, but it wasn't broken. Of course not." Rebecca jumped in, trying to smooth things over. "Uncle Marcus, just means that single parenthood is challenging. It's admirable how your mother managed, really. But Marcus wasn't done. I just think it's important to be realistic about these things. Emma's done well for herself, but she's starting from behind. You know, she'll have to work twice as hard to prove herself in the professional world." "Why?" Emma asked. "Well, networking connections, family resources, cultural capital. These things matter in competitive fields." I felt something break inside me, not just embarrassment or anger, but something deeper. It's the careful walls I built around my insecurities came crashing down. "You're right," I said quietly. "Emma will have to work harder. She'll have to prove herself to people who think she doesn't belong. She'll have to smile politely when people make assumptions about her background and her family." The table went silent. "But what Emma has that your kids don't," I continued, my voice getting stronger, "is the knowledge that she can survive anything. She's watched me work 3 jobs and still show up for every school play. She's learned that love isn't about having everything perfect. It's about showing up every single day, no matter what. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Sarah? I didn't mean yes, you did, I said, standing up. You meant exactly what you said. And that's fine. But don't pretend you're complimenting me when you're really telling me I'm not good enough to be here. I walked out of the restaurant, my hands shaking with anger and shame. Emma followed me with Tyler close behind. Mom, Emma said, grabbing my arm in the parking lot. Don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But the damage was done. As we walked toward the graduation ceremony, I could hear Marcus behind us, telling Rebecca and Dorothy how sensitive I was being, how he was just trying to be realistic about Emma's situation. That's when I heard Rebecca whisper to Marcus, maybe she should just sit in the back and clap quietly. Let Emma have her moment without drawing attention to the family drama. And Marcus nodded, adding under his breath, she shouldn't even be speaking at this ceremony. She's just a single mom who got lucky. I stopped walking. Emma was the student speaker. She was going to address the entire graduating class. And my own family thought she didn't deserve that honor. The shame I'd been carrying for 22 years felt heavier than ever. The walk from the restaurant to the auditorium felt like the longest 10 minutes of my life. Emma and Tyler flanked me on either side, their protective silence speaking louder than any words could. Behind us, I could hear Marcus explaining to Dorothy how I'd overreacted and how he'd only been trying to help Emma understand the realities of her situation. Mom, Emma said softly as we approached the imposing brick building, I need to tell you something. I stopped walking, afraid of what she might say. Had she heard everything? Was she embarrassed by my outburst? Did she agree with Marcus that I didn't belong here? I changed my speech. She said, her brown eyes serious. I was going to give this standard thank you to faculty talk, but after what just happened, I can't do that. I can't pretend that some of us didn't have to fight harder to get here. Tyler nodded approvingly. Good Uncle Marcus needs to hear some truth. Emma, you don't need to defend me, I said, my voice still shaky from the confrontation. This is your day, your moment. Don't let my problems overshadow your achievement. She grabbed both my hands, her graduation cap slightly askew. Mom, don't you get it? You're my achievement. Everything I've accomplished, everything I am, it's because of what you taught me. You think you failed somehow, but you raised me to be exactly who I'm supposed to be. I felt tears threatening again. Sweetheart, I just want you to be proud of what you've done. You've worked so hard for this degree, for this honor. You shouldn't have to spend your speech talking about our struggles. But our struggles are part of my story, Emma insisted. They're part of who I am. And there are probably other people in that auditorium who need to hear that their struggles matter too. As we entered the building, I watched Emma transform before my eyes. The hurt from Marcus's comments was still there, but it was being channeled into something else, determination, purpose, strength. She reminded me of myself at 22, but with opportunities I'd never had. I'm going to find my place with the other speakers, Emma said, adjusting her cap and smoothing down her gown. But first, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise. Me, you won't sit in the back. I need to be able to see you when I'm up there. I need to know you're proud of me, not hiding like we have something to be ashamed of. Tyler jumped in. Mom, remember when Emma was in 3rd grade and she was afraid to give that presentation about butterflies? You told her that courage isn't about not being scared, it's about being scared and doing it anyway. I remembered that day. Emma had been so nervous about speaking in front of her class. But she'd gotten up there and delivered a beautiful presentation about monarch migration patterns. Afterwards, she'd said it was the scariest and most exciting thing she'd ever done. You're right, I said, taking a deep breath. I won't hide in the back. Emma smiled, but then her expression grew serious again. There's something else. I give my speech. I'm going to mention you specifically. I'm going to tell everyone exactly what you sacrificed to get me here. I know you don't like attention, but I need to do this." My heart started racing. "Emma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. For 22 years, you've been invisible. You've worked night shifts so no one would know you were struggling. You've worn old clothes so I could have new ones. You've made yourself small so Tyler and I could be big. But today, I'm not going to let you be invisible anymore." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw something I'd missed before. She wasn't just confident. She was fierce. She had inherited my determination, but she'd also inherited something I'd lost somewhere along the way. The belief that she belonged wherever she chose to be. "Kay," I said finally, "but I want you to know that whatever you say up there, I'm already proud of you. Not because of your grades or your honors or your scholarship. I'm proud of you because you're kind and strong and you stand up for what you believe in." Emma hugged me tight. "I learned that from you, Mom. Even when you don't think you're being strong, you are, especially then." As we walked into the auditorium, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in years, I wasn't apologizing for my presence. I wasn't trying to make myself smaller or less noticeable. I was Emma Collins's mother, and that was enough. I found a seat in the middle section, close enough to see Emma's face, but far enough from Marcus to avoid another confrontation. Tyler sat beside me, and as the ceremony began, he leaned over and whispered, "She's going to blow everyone away." I nodded, watching Emma take her place with the other student government officers on the stage. She caught my eye and gave me a stage. She caught my eye and gave me a small wave, our secret signal that everything was going to be okay. For the first time all day, I believed it. The auditorium fell silent as Emma approached the podium. 500 graduates sat in neat rows, their families packed into the bleachers behind them. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows, casting everything in golden light. I could see Marcus 3 rows ahead checking his phone, probably already planning his exit strategy from this small-town ceremony. Emma adjusted the microphone, her hands steady in a way that reminded me of myself during my most challenging moments at work. She looked out over the crowd, and for just a second her eyes found mine. I gave her our signal, a small thumbs up, and watched her shoulders relax. "Dean Peterson, faculty, families, and fellow graduates," Emma began, her voice clear and flat. I began, her voice clear and slash Emma. "And we all know I've been exploring that. And we all know I've been exploring that path." I gave her our signal, a small slash, and watch her slash quote ways of, with flash MSC, well slash cality. Mela side slash plus slash corticoid plays cality catus cash, collegus. We caloe delicate with course lad with collegae de wide sev chi, strong. When I was asked to speak today, I planned to give you the traditional speech about new beginnings and bright futures, and I will talk about those things. But first, I need to address something that happened to me this afternoon. A murmur rippled through the audience. This wasn't the usual graduation speech. Even Marcus looked up from his phone. Before this ceremony, someone told me that I was lucky to be here, that I came from a broken home and had to overcome disadvantages that other students didn't face, that I would have to work twice as hard to prove myself because of my background. Heart stopped. She was really doing this. It's in front of hundreds of people. She was taking on the judgment that had followed our family for years. "I want to talk about luck," Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. "Because I have been incredibly lucky. I've been lucky to have a mother who worked 3 jobs to keep our family together. I've been lucky to have a brother who shared his Halloween candy with me when money was tight. I've been lucky to learn that strength isn't about having everything. It's about making something beautiful out of whatever you've got." I felt tears starting, but these weren't tears of shame. They were something else entirely. Some of you had parents who could hire tutors and test prep coaches. My mom was my tutor, teaching me algebra at our kitchen table after her shift at the diner, even though she was exhausted. Some of you had college funds. My mom worked overtime for 2 years to help me buy textbooks. Some of you had family connections to help with internships. My mom taught me to create my own opportunities by working harder and being kinder than anyone expected. Emma paused, looking directly at me. Some people think that makes me disadvantaged. I think it makes me unstoppable. The auditorium erupted in applause. Students were cheering, parents were nodding, and I could see people wiping their eyes. But Emma wasn't finished. Before I continue, I want you to meet someone. Mom, would you please stand up? My blood turned to ice. This wasn't what we discussed. She was supposed to mention me, not put me on display. I shook my head slightly, but Tyler was already tugging on my arm. Stand up, Mom, he whispered. Everyone needs to see you. With trembling legs, I stood. The auditorium fell silent again, 500 faces turning to look at me. I felt exposed, vulnerable. Like every mistake I'd ever made was written across my forehead. But Emma's voice cut through my panic. This is Sarah Collins. She's 42 years old and she's been a single mother for 20 years. It's never finished college because she was too busy making sure Tyler and I could. She's worked nights so she could be at our school events during the day. She's worn the same dress to job interviews and parent-teacher conferences because she spent her clothing budget on our school supplies. I wanted to disappear, but something in Emma's voice kept me standing. She taught me that being a single mother isn't a failure. It's a choice to put your children's future ahead of your own comfort. She taught me that working with your hands is just as honorable as working with your mind. She taught me that the size of your paycheck doesn't determine the size of your heart. The applause started again, but Emma raised her hand for silence. In 2 weeks, I start law school at State University. I have a full scholarship, which I earned through hard work and determination. But more importantly, I'm starting a nonprofit organization called Single Mothers Rising. It will provide scholarships, childcare, and career counseling for single mothers who want to pursue higher education. My knees almost gave out. She had never mentioned this before. Because my mother taught me something that no textbook ever could, Emma said, her eyes locked on mine. She taught me that when life knocks you down, you don't just get back up. You reach back and help the next person up too. The auditorium exploded. People were on their feet, cheering and applauding. I could see Marcus sitting frozen in his seat, his face pale with shock. Rebecca was clapping hesitantly, looking around as if trying to figure out how she was supposed to react. But I only had eyes for my daughter, standing at that podium in her cap and gown. She looked like everything I'd ever dreamed she could become: confident, compassionate, powerful. Single mothers don't just survive, Emma concluded, her voice ringing through the auditorium. We thrive. And we raise children who change the world. As I finally sat down, surrounded by thunderous applause, I realized that for the first time in 22 years, I wasn't invisible anymore. The minutes after Emma's speech passed in a blur of congratulations and tears. As the ceremony concluded and families began to flow out of the auditorium, I found myself surrounded by strangers who wanted to shake my hand and share their own stories. A woman with graying hair grabbed my arm and said, "I raised 3 kids, alone after my divorce. Thank you for showing us we matter." A young mother with a toddler on her hip approached with tears in her eyes. "My daughter is only 4, but when she graduates someday, I want to be as proud as you are today." But it was Marcus who surprised me most. I was standing near the stage, waiting for Emma to finish taking photos with her classmates when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to find my cousin, his face flushed and his usual confident demeanor completely gone. "Sarah," he said quietly, his voice shaking, "I owe you the biggest apology of my life." I stared at him, not sure what to say. 20 years of subtle put-downs and condescending comments hung between us. "I never understood," he continued, his eyes filling with tears. "I thought success looked like my life. The big house, the private schools, the perfect family portrait. But watching Emma, up there hearing what she said about you, ... I realized I'd been measuring everything wrong. Rebecca appeared beside him, looking equally shaken. "We both have," she said softly. "I've been so focused on my career and our lifestyle that I forgot what really matters. Your children are remarkable, Sarah, and they're remarkable because of you, not despite you." Tyler had been quietly listening, and now he stepped forward with that crooked grin that always melts my heart. "Mom, I think Uncle Marcus is finally figuring out what Emma and I have known our whole lives. You're kind of a superhero." Marcus laughed through his tears, a sound I hadn't heard from him in years. "Your brother's right, Emma. Your mom is extraordinary. I just wish it took me this long to see it." Later, as we walked to the parking lot, my mother Dorothy caught up with us. At 68, she's not one for big emotional displays, but her eyes were red-rimmed and her voice was softer than usual. "I need to tell you something, Sarah," she said, stopping beside my old Honda Civic. "For 22 years, I've been worried that you threw your life away when you had. Emma, I kept thinking about all the things you could have been if you'd made different choices. I braced myself for another lecture about missed opportunities and poor decisions. But today I realized I was wrong," she continued. "You didn't throw your life away. You built something beautiful. You raised a daughter who stands in front of hundreds of people and speaks truth with courage. You raised a son who defends his family with grace. You created a home filled with love and strength, and I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." She hugged me then, really hugged me, for the first time since I was a little girl. 3 months later, Emma's nonprofit Single Mothers Rising received its first major grant, $50,000 from a foundation that had seen the video of her graduation speech online. The speech had gone viral, shared by thousands of single mothers who saw themselves in our story. Emma was invited to speak at conferences and universities, always introducing me as her co-founder and inspiration. But the real change happened in smaller ways. Tyler started volunteering at the local community center, tutoring kids whose parents worked multiple jobs. I enrolled in night classes at the community college, finally pursuing that social work degree I'd abandoned 22 years ago. Emma deferred law school for a year to focus on building the nonprofit, but she was already accepted and ready to start the following fall. The grocery store flowers I'd brought to graduation were long dead. But Emma had saved one of the daisies and pressed it in her diploma frame. "It's my first scholarship," she called it, a reminder of how far we'd come. 6 months after graduation, I walked across a different stage to receive my associate degree. Emma and Tyler were in the front row this time, cheering loud enough to embarrass me. In the audience, I spotted 3 other single mothers from our support group. Women I'd met through Emma's nonprofit who were now pursuing their own dreams as I accepted my diploma. I thought about that scared 20-year-old girl who dropped out of college because she thought she had no other choice. I thought about all the years I spent believing I wasn't enough, that I hadn't given my children everything they deserved. But standing on that stage, wearing my own cap and gown, I finally understood what Emma had been trying to tell me all along. I hadn't failed my children by being a single mother. I'd given them something more valuable than money or status or a perfect family portrait. I'd given them the knowledge that they could overcome anything because they'd watched me do it every single day for 22 years, and that was more than enough. That was everything. Sometimes the people who judge us the harshest are the ones who understand us the least. But the people who truly matter see our worth even when we can't see it ourselves. If this story touched your heart, if you know a single parent who's been fighting their own battles, or if you've ever felt invisible in a room full of people who seem to belong more than you do, share this video. Let someone know they're not alone in their struggle. Every single parent deserves to hear what Emma told that auditorium that day. You're not broken, you're not disadvantaged, and you're definitely not just anything. You're raising the next generation of world changers, and that makes you extraordinary. If this story inspired you, Please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real stories about real people overcoming real challenges. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful stories that remind us we're all stronger than we think. What's your story? Have you ever had a moment where someone stood up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself? Share it in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Until next time, remember, you're enough, you matter, and your story deserves to be told.